Now for this step, we'll be sewing our body front and body back pieces together. You'll just take the two pieces and line them up as so. You want your body front piece to be facing out toward you, and you'll take your safety pins and you will use them to pin the two pieces together so that they won't shift around while you are sewing them. I'm going to go ahead and speed it up just a little bit. You can see what I'm doing. I'm putting a couple in where the legs are. I'll put a couple in where the arms are. And that just keeps everything together really neatly. I'm going to go ahead and finish putting the pin in at the arm here. And then when I get up to the eyes and the face, I want to be really sure that I don't poke my needle through the embroidery. See where that cheek is, or the mouth, or the eyes. I don't actually want to stick my pin through those stitches. I want to avoid them because you can damage those stitches and then they'll be frayed. So once you have your pieces pinned together, you can begin sewing. We're going to use our green thread. I've got my needle threaded with a single thread, and I have included in your kit a little piece of extra material that you can park your needle in whenever you're not using it. And that's really just an important thing to make a habit of doing. If you drop your needle on the floor and it's in a pin cushion or on a piece of fabric, it is much easier to find than if it is just loose. So it's a good habit to get into. So I'm going to begin sewing right up underneath where the frog's arm is. I'm going to give just a little space. I'm leaving that the place between his arm and his leg open because that's where we'll stick our stuffing eventually. So I want to get started right up underneath the arm here. And I'm just going to make my first stitch. I want to put my knot between the two layers, just like whenever I was sewing the tummy on, I put the knot in the back. I want to, with the whip stitch, put the knot between the two layers of fabric so that you can't see it. So I will stick my needle in through between the two layers to start my first stitch, and then bring it around to the front, and then poke the needle back through. So I'm actually making kind of a loop around the outer edge of the fabric, and I'm using those stitched on lines there as a guideline for how deep to make my whip stitches. If you need more instruction with how to do the whip stitch, I have a video on my YouTube channel. It's in the playlist for basic sewing techniques. You want to check in every once in a while on the front and the back side to make sure that your stitches are looking even, that they're coming out at about the same distance from the back as they are in the front, and you just keep stitching along. You can use the stitched on guidelines there as a guideline. If you stitch between the stitches, right where the hole is between the two stitches along that edge, your whip stitches should be very evenly aligned around the edge. And you see I'm just taking my needle and I'll just adjust that so that it's straight. And you want to take the thread and you just want to do the whip stitch all the way around the outer edge of your project. And that's going to sew these two pieces together. And you want to just check in periodically on the back to make sure you're not having any tangles, that you're catching both the front and the back pieces when you're making your stitches. You want to be sure that the needle, when it goes in through the front of the fabric, it's coming out the back side of the back piece of fabric. Sometimes it's hard to catch both the front and the back pieces of fabric. Now, as I go on this little corner here, you can see I'm just continuing to follow the stitch marks. So, oops, I got a little tangled up. I just unwound that. So I just go between the two stitches on that guideline. You can see I'm just placing my needle between the two running stitches along the guideline. And if I do that, then my stitches stay pretty even. You can see that they kind of go into the corner together. That's okay. The back is looking all right. I'm catching the back piece of fabric too. Not missing anything. I'm going to go ahead and stitch around the whole outer edge. I will show you before we move on how to stop and start again when you're doing the whip stitch. You're probably going to run out of thread, and so when you need to get new thread, you're going to tie an ending knot just like we did with the running stitch, except for with the whip stitch you make a stitch, or go as if you're going to make a stitch, leave a little loop, and then you push your needle through twice. And because this project is a stuffy, I like to add a second knot whenever I'm tying off the whip stitches on a stuffy, just because they get a little bit of pressure put on them whenever they get stuffed, those stitches. So I'm going to go ahead and pull that tight, and so now we have a little knot, and that's holding those stitches and keeping them from coming unraveled. Now I'll take my needle, and I'm actually just going to poke the end of the thread here, poke the needle right back into the same stitch hole there, and I'll just push it into between the two layers of fabric. See, it's not coming out the front, it's just between the two layers, and tug it out till it's taut there. And then I'm going to use my scissors to cut that off, and that way that little tail from the knot will be buried down inside between the two layers. Now I'm going to rethread my needle and give myself just about the distance between my fingers and my forearm, plus a few extra inches for my tail. I'm going to thread my needle. I like to pinch the tip of the thread right up next to my fingertips, and then kind of just lay the needle onto the thread, and that tends to work. I've used a chenille needle for this project. It's a kind of embroidery needle, and it's got a sharp tip, but it's got a really big eye, which is great for easy threading. If you lose your needle, it is a size 22 chenille needle, and you can get it from any craft store. Now I'll just continue working. The way that you start again is you want to find the stitch where you left off, and I'm just going to stick it through the back right into the place where that last stitch ended, between the two layers, so that my knot is hidden. I'll just tuck it down in there so that little tail is hidden between the two layers. And then I'm going to bring my thread around, and I'm going to go into the next stitch just as usual, and continue stitching along the outer edge. You just continue on into the next stitch and the next stitch, and there you're off and running again. We'll just work our way around the edge of the fabric, stitching the two pieces together. I'm going to go ahead and fast forward. I'll meet you when we get to right about to where the leg is. So I'm just about finished working my way around with the whip stitch around the outer edge of my project, and I'm coming up to the place where I'm going to leave the opening for the stuffing. You have to make sure that you leave that opening, or you won't be able to stuff it. Sometimes it's really easy to forget. We're going to go ahead and continue making stitches until the leg is shaped just a little bit. So we'll put a few stitches on the leg so that we can stuff a little bit of stuffing down into that leg. And we'll leave our opening just in the side of the frog. Now I'm going to go ahead and make an ending knot. You want to make sure that you always place an ending knot at the end of your stitches. Otherwise, they really will just come right undone. We're going to leave a little space here open for our stuffing. And I'm going to go ahead and tie an ending knot to finish our project. I'll actually use this last stitch here because I think that'll leave us a good size of opening. So I'm just going to, just as if like that last stitch, just pick it up a little bit, draw my needle through twice, make another loop, put my needle through it twice, and then pull it tight. And I have a couple of little knots there. to make it really sturdy at that opening. Then I'm going to bury my tail in between the 2 layers of fabric so that it's hidden. And then I'll clip that off. And I'll take out the safety pins and then we're done. Don't forget to park your needle in your little pin cushion. That way if it falls on the floor, you can find it really easily. You don't want to step on those. I've done that before. It doesn't feel good. We'll finish taking our safety pins out. And then our project will be ready to be stuffed. And you're finished.